30 anni, 792 fabbricanti, 72 paesi. Uno spazio in cui persone da tutto il mondo si scambiano esperienze e conoscenze e in cui arte, cultura e ricerca si incontrano per dare vita a qualcosa di nuovo. Un luogo di contaminazione tra saperi e punti di vista diversi, un percorso di ricerca e formazione nei campi più svariati, dalla comunicazione visiva all'interaction design, dal video alla scrittura e molto altro. Un traguardo importante, 30 anni di sperimentazione che si festeggiano con una grande reunion per tutti gli ex fabbricanti. Un solo obiettivo, sviluppare progetti fuori dal comune.
My name is Bill Morrison. I was fabricante number 17. I arrived the first year in 1995. When I arrived, there was still much smoke and dust and clouds in the air and a lot of confusion and maybe some misgivings. But what I saw was this beautiful architecture and a space where I could, peacefully do my work. So I wrote to my friend who was staying in my apartment back in New York, and I said, you know the cardboard box that has all the films in it underneath my bed? And he was like, yes. He said, can you please send that to me? So I saw all these editing machines lying around in disrepair, and we got a repairman to come from Milan to reassemble them and put them in a corner for me. And then I got my box of films and I started working on my film, which became the film of her. And it was a really incredible year to be able to concentrate like that. I became interested in archival film, specifically archival film that had shown some deterioration over time. And the film that I was making while I was at Fabrica was about the first film images that were recorded on film, but then they were saved on paper and eventually rephotographed from paper and returned to film, so that they went through many different types of media migrations. And I think that's an important aspect of my work, is how an image gets lost and how it can be recovered.
After my formal education ended, which was in cinematography, I was left with a choice to not just use my filmmaking in a very binary understanding and using it as a mainstream storytelling tool, but to realize its potential and to realize its storytelling potential with a much wider perspective, a much wider lens.
Yeah, we're going to do another film session at 3 o'clock. 3 to 5, we'll show The Village Detective and maybe some more recent work. But it might make sense to make a Google Doc. I've spoken to Vivek already, but I'd be happy to speak to any of you else.
As a senior resident, my another responsibility is kind of to be the bridge between the guest and the residents. Plus, being a film practitioner, it was much more intriguing for me, so I can build this initial contact with him. I was kind of streamlining all the films which he wanted to present. So we are kind of also adapting the plan, the curation which he has related to how we can, put it together and also meet the needs of the artist. They have their own curiosity, they want to learn from Bill in their own way. So that bridge is basically me, and I'm trying to play that role.
I mean, I don't know, is there something Carlos talked to you about how lecture should go or some format, or it's just these things?
If everyone speaks English, I don't know to the degree that's...
I think majority of people who come, they do.
So I could read that piece. I mean, it seems a little much for people to sit there and read a 4-page piece. I had thought of it as more of a read lecture.
This is my second day here at Fabrica. Yesterday we showed 2 programs of my work. So this was sort of a survey of my work that covered roughly 20 years. And afterwards I spoke with some of the current fabricanti about their projects and ideas that they have moving forward, and gave suggestions where I can.
And he's not just like a traditional filmmaker in its sense. He's more of a film archaeologist at the same time. He's like, kind of playing within the archive, and also his mode of storytelling is kind of also reclaiming old footage and reclaiming old narratives which have been created. Whereas where I come from, I have learned and practiced again and again to work in the current time rather than in the histories. So when I kind of reflect back upon on my own practice after attending this workshop with Bill, because I come from a place where I'm using my camera to tell the stories. It's what's in the frame, I'm recording, I have different ethical questions. Whereas what he's doing is he's taking existing material and retelling stories. I think one big direction which he has really forced me to think is thinking outside recording, thinking outside documenting, and maybe taking existing documentation, and there's so many more stories which I can tell. Kind of really inspirational in the sense that it kind of makes you very independent.
I work in music, but in Fabrica I have a chance to hone my skill in graphic design, and have a lot of chat with friends who are product designer and the lecturers who is very confident in their field. The visual influence of Fabrica have encouraged me to go deeper in my fashion sense and delve deeper into aesthetics, which is a subject that I haven't been touched on for such a long time. I don't have a chance to do this back in my country, and I have a big stage, the iconic Agora, where I can explode with movement. Yes, to be here is to go beyond. Firstly, it's have to be you go beyond your culture. Especially, I come from Asia, which is a lot of hard discipline there in terms of being respectful and stuff like that. But here you have a chance to get that attachment out of yourself and go beyond that. And the next thing is emotional. You have to learn how to do the perfect teamwork. And that also means you have to get out of your head most of the time.
I'm Laia, I'm a research-based artist. I work mostly with photography, text, video and sound, and I make long-term projects that are based in installations but also photo books, and pretty much I spend a lot of time talking about my project as well, which are based on women's rights and politics. I don't think I woke up one day thinking I'm going to spend the rest of my career or the next 20 years working on women's rights, but I tried to tell the stories that were near to me, and when I tried, it seemed that no one was interested, or it was uncomfortable, or people didn't want to look at them. So that sort of opened and sparked an interest on talking about subjects that people didn't want to talk about it. But however, that I am very political, and I am a person who is very much connected with social injustice, which is something I also developed of course, when I was at Fabrica, and it's pretty much the most important part of my work. I don't think I am a classical photographer. I don't really mind about the tools I work with. For me, the most important part is to tell the stories. So I want to share part of my methodology, and I also want to reflect collectively in the importance of representation. I mean, this is people who are pretty young and in a very complex situation and moment in our history, and I'm sure they have plenty of incredible ideas and thoughts and reflections around the way that we are represented through photography. So I want to have discussions about that. I want to work with them in a small exercise about self-representation, and I also want to know about their own projects, because I know they are working in the exhibition, so I want to support them and give them feedback about their own projects.
So I'm from Tashkent, Uzbekistan, in Central Asia. I'm a visual artist, mainly working with photography and film. And in my film, I try to explore some archival materials, but also focus on the contemporary issues like women's agency in the region. And in my photography, I mostly do documentary, but I try to expand into other types of.
It's interesting. I found very powerful what you say about wanting to have blue eyes. It's not that I was like trying to have blue eyes. I mean, with the intervention, based on that, it's.
Yeah, it was very interesting because she is also a photographer, and she sometimes engages in documentary mediums. And her work on the abortion and on the eating disorders also raises questions of women and lives and how they navigate the society. And this is something I also work with in my own work. And it was interesting to see how she then puts it into exhibitions and works with spaces and print materials. As this is something I would also like to explore more, like book printing and photography exhibitions.
Whenever there is self involved in the activity, and I get very awkward. But at the same time, I do enjoy to observe, and as a filmmaker and a photographer, I think my eyes like the main tools that I use.
So as part of the workshop, we had an exercise to do a self-portrait, and whenever I hear the word self, I get very awkward, and I don't really like to talk about myself. So I decided to include a photo of my eye and stick it into the Tadawando's wall. To represent, I like to observe what is happening around. I like to observe, but not talk much.